Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of the Backyard Sportscenter podcast. Today, I am along with Wizard and the champion of Season 7, MelloMathTeacher. Welcome to both of you this fine afternoon.
It's a pleasure, Nate.
Hey, y'all.
Yeah, I'm really happy to... sorry, Wizard. Go ahead.
That was it. Just saying hello.
Well, I'm really happy to have you on the podcast. You're one of the many RBVO players that I've wanted to have on the show and finally have the opportunity to do it. So kind of introduce yourself, and for those of you that are not familiar with yourself, and kind of how you initially found these games or your upbringing with the games, and then also how you found the RBVO Discord server.
All right. So I was a very small child. I believe it was around like 1998, 1999 when I first started, learning how to use the computer, and I was playing some of the Humongous Entertainment games. I don't quite remember how I obtained the games because I was very, very young at the time. I played some of the early Pajama Sam, Freddy Fish, and a couple of the early Putt-Putt games. Among the Junior Adventures, the Pajama Sam ones were my favorite. And along the way, I got Backyard Soccer, Backyard Baseball, and Backyard Football, the original ones from 1997 through 1999. Soccer was the very first one I played, but I wasn't particularly good at it because all I did was like click on things, and I just didn't get really a good idea of the strategy at all. But I think I definitely got a better grasp of Backyard Baseball, and I felt that I did significantly better with that. The one I played the most was Backyard Football in my youth because that was the one where the games were the shortest. So I felt like I could get through a season much more easily. I played several seasons of Backyard Football, but I think I only played like maybe 1 or 2 complete seasons of Backyard Baseball. But my team at the time, was the Blue Sox. Blue was my favorite color. And my favorite character was Luann Louie because she was just irresistibly adorable. And she was also the only character who was like younger than me at the time I was first playing it. Yeah, the only Backyard Baseball I had ever played was Backyard Baseball 1997. And I played almost exclusively on easy mode at the time because I absolutely despised losing. And I fell in love with the characters. I fell in love with the music. It's absolutely iconic. I just got it. I just got the vibe, and I enjoyed it immensely. The character's very memorable, the voice work absolutely top-notch, and it just, had a nice, pleasant space in my memory at the time, and I played it from like age 6 until around age 8 or 9 or so. Then, much later... Let's see here. When was this? I saw some footage of I watched some Backyard Baseball content on YouTube from time to time. This is a nice little trip down memory lane. And I actually, let's see here. Around 2018, 2019, I joined another Discord server, and you might have seen some of those cute little emotes that I used from a little black-haired girl. They came from Masayanella. I was watching a Backyard Baseball stream from the Promote Stuff channel from that Discord, and it was Colorful Artie who was making some Backyard Baseball streams. So I'm like, ooh, Backyard Baseball, that's fun. I enjoyed that a lot when I was younger. And then when I was, watching one of these streams, I was also like, there's a lot about Backyard Baseball that I don't really know. And I figured I'd try to, get a little bit deeper into it. And one of the things I remember seeing is that there were some absolutely ridiculously stacked kids, like ridiculously talented kids that I would see from time to time in my just cursory glances at Backyard Baseball footage on YouTube, and also some absolutely awful ones. While I was watching Colorful Artie's streams, I went on the internet and I actually found a source. I don't know if it was an RBBL source, but some source that listed out some numerical stats for some of the generic characters. And I thought it was absolutely fascinating because when Colorful Artie, the streamer I was watching, was moving on to like the Championship Series and then the World Series in Backyard Baseball 97, they artificially stack the Super Entire Nation tournament team, the semifinal team, with a bunch of big bats, though they're not necessarily, great players in their own right, but they stack a bunch of big bats on that particular team. And then when you go on to the World Series, they basically stack 9 of the top 30 or so players in the entire game on there, where everyone on that team just hits nukes. You've got Jay Green, Leah Wayne, Henri Deschênes, Fred Benson, Jane Davis, those sorts of players. And the weakest player you'll ever see on a team like that is probably someone like Davy Marian or Debbie Nagasawa. It's absolutely incredible just how ridiculously stacked that final roster was. And I never knew at the time when I was a little kid. I just thought that was so cool.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that they stacked them like that.
Yeah, they don't stack them in 2001 or 2003, but they stack the finale team in 1997 to a comically big degree. It's probably the hardest postseason experience of all the backyard baseball games, to be completely honest. It's
Mello,
like playing
would you notice generic names repeating? So that's one thing when I remember when I first came to the server, people kind of explained the generics for anyone who has no, experience with that. And I didn't remember any of the names as a kid. I don't know if I just wasn't looking at it or just put those kids, in the back of my mind. But did you all recognize any of those generic names when you were kids?
The absolute only name that I recognized on site was Star Moonbeam. And I recognized Star Moonbeam not because of her appearance in baseball, actually, but because of her experience in backyard football. I saw Star Moonbeam in backyard football a lot, and she, just like in baseball, she was an absolute ridiculous speed demon in backyard football as well. And because one thing I distinctly remember seeing was that Star Moonbeam was the absolute fastest character in the game, alone. I think the generic girl at maximum speed in backyard football 99 is actually faster than the generic guy and faster than Pete. I remember running with Pete Wheeler, and Pete Wheeler could not catch Star Moonbeam. Star Moonbeam was getting separation from Pete, and my jaw was just agape. So she was definitely one of the most bothersome opponents that I played there. And she had an iconic name too, of course. When I played backyard baseball, I only played through 2 complete seasons, so I didn't get a whole lot of exposure to the generics in baseball at all. But yeah, I believe when I was watching one of Colorful Artie's streams, I think Jibbo to Hibbo gave me an invite to the backyard baseball server because I was expressing interest in all these ridiculously stacked generics, and I just thought it was really fascinating. And that's how I ended up getting roped into the server. And I came to the server just utterly fascinated at the massive treasure trove of information that pales in comparison to what we know now, but at the time, it seemed like so much knowledge. There was just so much interesting stuff that I never knew about this game that I was just eager to learn as much as I could. And that's basically how I came to the server.
Yeah, it always just it seems like I remember when I first came here, which ironically was the exact same stream in the exact same day that you came to the server, but it just it's so much information and so much overflow at the time that your mind just doesn't even know how to grasp it, and you're just so filled with nostalgia and excitement that you don't even know how to contain yourself.
It's one of my favorite things because I just, from my own experience of coming in and getting that information, dropped on you or shot at you like a fire hose, seeing people come in and have no idea what we're talking about or what, the big brains are talking about at first, and then asking questions and really diving into it. And when we have someone that comes in and really takes to it, there's just something, it's kind of magical to me. I just really enjoy it. It's like you said, the nostalgia kicks in, and I just imagine them being big, bright-eyed. And I think it's really cool that the community has really tapped into it like they have.
Yeah, and I guess I feel like there are probably several people who saw something who felt something incredibly gratifying about an absolute backyard baseball neophyte by comparison. When I joined the Backyard Baseball server, I had never played Backyard Baseball 01 or 03. I didn't know a thing about the out of 10 rating systems. I didn't know a thing about the pros. I was taken aback by the absolutely ridiculous number of pros on both of those games. There were only 8 in Backyard Football 99, and they were all distinct enough in their personality. Like, you knew that Brett Favre was the country boy that wrestled gators. And you knew that Jerry Rice was the guy who was just like the prototypical wide receiver, and yet you do not call him Jerome and all that stuff. And you've got John Elway, who's like 31, 42, hey! He just had that distinct voice. And then Danny Marino, he's the really slow guy who loved Miami and who's very soft-spoken. Like, you got to know all of them, and there weren't all that many of them. Oh yeah, how did I forget Barry Sanders? He's very quiet. He just mutters things from time to time, and its touchdown celebration is simply flipping the ball aside and looking slowly left and right, left and right. And then I don't know a thing about any of the actual MLB pros because, I never watched MLB growing up. And there's just so many of them, and they just all kind of blend together to me now. So yeah, it definitely felt like a really big, really different experience, but I was eager to learn, and learn I clearly did, judging from the Season 7 result.
I think that's kind of a good transition into your rookie season and what happened there.
Well, let's see. I wasn't even intending to begin my RBBL career at the time because I don't remember the guy's name. Was it like G Cool or something? He was intending to create something of a side season or side tournament in which we would draft, we would have different pools of players available to draft based on our experience level in the league, so that all the newcomers would be able to draft from a more talented pool of players than the veterans who would have, significantly less talented players to kind of even out the playing field. And I'm like, you know what? I think this would be a good opportunity to, get my feet wet in playing Backyard Baseball 2003 for the very first time. Because I didn't even know Backyard Baseball 2003 had existed. I just thought it was 2001 and that was it. And when I heard the voices of 03 for the very first time, I was like, oh my God, these are grating. These voices, they're so different. Like, when you get a voice in your head, it feels so incredibly awkward and different to hear something else. So I very quickly turned off the commentary, turned off the color commentary, and turned off all the player voices. But yeah, that particular side season never got off the ground. It never actually happened. So if I was going to start playing, I was going to have to, start playing in the big boy league, the RBBL. I'm like, oh boy, I'm going to jump in right on the deep end. But fortunately for me, one of the things that encouraged me to begin was the conference structure at the time. It split Season 7 into 3 conferences. The Backyard for the most successful veterans, the indoors conference for some of the less successful veterans, and some rookies that had a proven track record from doing something else in the game, something else in the server. And then there was the front yard conference, which was full of rookies, as well as some 1 season or 2 season vets that didn't have any prior season success at a time. So I was in the front yard, and when it came time to pick a team name, I didn't want to pick anyone else's, team. And what I ultimately landed on was I chose the Athletics, mostly because I thought the story of the Moneyball Athletics to be incredibly fascinating. The way that they would just get the most out of the talent of the team, the most out of that team's talent, despite not having a whole ton of talent on offer, is just a really cool idea. So I landed on the Junior Athletics in order to create the junior version of the Moneyball Athletics. That was my thinking at the time. So then we started moving on to the draft, and I was still teaching at the time. At the time, it was the late spring of 2021. So that was my very first year of full-time teaching, And we were far enough into the pandemic that I was finally making my way back to school every day, and we were doing the hybrid teaching. I would teach some in-person students as well as use the computer to reach some virtual students at the time. So I was in the classroom every day at the time. And then I distinctly remember coming home after having picked my team, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to, get some advice and discuss some things before the draft begins. And by the time I had come home from work that day, we were already partway through the first round. And I was like, oh God, the draft has already started. I don't know what to do. And yeah, but I had a ton of help. I got help from Crazy Eights. I had help from P. Sanchez. I got help from I had discussions with several other people at the time, but those two were definitely the most helpful in, giving me information about how the draft works and what sorts of attributes I should be looking for in helping to build my team. And I made my very first draft pick, Courtney Valentino, at pick number 23, and she was just a great pick. She was just a great talent. And when I looked at I was using AES, ACE had a tier list at the time, and that's what I was using for my primary resource when looking at my draft board. And Courtney's fielding rating had been inflated to 7 at the time. Apparently, ACE thought that Courtney's fielding played better than the 4 that's in game because she had a really strong arm. It's just that it turns out she does not have a good glove at all, and she also has bad vision. But then I started working my way through the rest of the draft. I saw Wendy Parsons available to me in the second round after a bit of a trade, and I saw that she had a 5 out of 5 arm, which was fantastic. I tried to move her to catcher, and then the third round I saw Nan Porter. Nan Porter and Jimmy Rollins were both the last remaining shortstops in the draft, and I was told that you could displace one shortstop with another to move them to a position where you want. See, at the time, we also had these tables that essentially listed out all the priorities for which player goes in which spot. Like, you had the pitcher priority, first base, then shortstop, then catcher. So if I reasoned, if I had a first base slot, a lockdown pitcher, and a shortstop lot, then I could move Wendy to catcher and just eliminate all the players that had a better catcher priority than Wendy. And that was, after having learned about how all that stuff worked, that was the plan that I developed on my own. I ran it by P. Sanchez. He said it seemed like a good plan. So I executed it. I picked up Sally in the 4th round after taking 40 minutes and was getting yelled at by admin for taking so long. It was a really, really hard choice.
It was just funny how those people were getting on you after 40 minutes.
Yeah, I was agonizing between her and Amanda Hellerman trying to get my pitcher. Sally turned out to be the right pick.
Amanda was available in round 4?
Yeah, both Hellerman and Randy Johnson were available in round 4. Randy Johnson actually went the pick immediately afterward by Sisu.
Oh, wow. Oh, actually, that is right.
I think that's the earliest. That's the earliest I think that they had been drafted to. I think Sisu was early on them. I remember my first season, they went in the hundreds. I think round 5 or 6.
Oh, wow.
Hellerman and Johnson?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's just mind-boggling to me, though, not based on what we've seen now.
Yeah, we didn't know the detailed stats at the time. There was a ton that we didn't know. We actually discovered the stats in week 4 of that season, but I'll get there when we get there. Anyway, then I just continued rolling along, picking up more and more talent. I got Holly Franklin in the 5th, and then Ray Tran in the 6th. That's earlier than Ray Tran is now. Ray Tran was my only real defensive liability, so I hit him out in right field. Then I got Don Cozart in round 7 because I knew that I needed a solid first base lock, and I needed that to execute the plan, and I did. I didn't actually get to pick my field. I was actually the very last. I was actually the very last one to pick my field. And I was left with Dubois Diamond. So I had heard that Marky Dubois got a boost at Dubois Diamond. And I was looking around the draft board, but I was like, not only do I need, not only would Marky be really nice, but I also need a lockdown pitcher. I need to make sure that, nothing happens with some weird guy going to pitcher that shouldn't be there. So when Todd Xavier fell to me in the 8th, I was very surprised, and I was very happy to pick him up, because the other generic clone to Todd Xavier, Tiffany Bosworth, ended up going in the 6th round that season, so I wasn't expecting Todd Xavier to fall all the way to me, and he did, and I was very, very happy about it. Because if you just look at the raw stats, 6'4", 10'8", he just looked like a really great defensive piece and an absolute superstar pitcher. I mean, he had the same ratings as Randy Johnson. I was super thrilled to get Todd Xavier at the time. And then, let's see here. In the 9th round, the only position I hadn't thought of was third base. And I knew that I wasn't going to get anyone good in the round 9. So I just wanted the best arm I could find. And I ended up picking up Chandler Huggins. And what ended up happening was, after I got my team, okay, so here's the big thing. Probably the biggest contributor to my defensive success was this thing right here. Listen to this. So, at the time, we did not know the detailed stats, but the community had put together an arm rating for all of the generic players, as well as, all the players in general. They gave Mikey Thomas a 5 out of 5, I remember. I don't remember most of the ratings. I think they gave Maria Luna a 2 out of 5 or something like that.
It was based strictly on it was an eye test, completely based on eye test too.
Yes. So I picked up Chandler Huggins because he was a 5.339. He had a 9 out of 10 in fielding. I'm like, okay, he's great at defending. He can hit a little bit. That's a 5. And he's slow, but it's fine. It's very slim pickings when you get all the way down to round 9. But as free agency passed by, I believe it was actually you, Wizard, who had drafted Butch Sherrod at the time.
Mm-hmm,
and
he didn't fit.
Yeah, you were going for a super ridiculously hyper offensive homer cranking team, and Butch Sherrod does not crank home runs, so you dropped him. And as soon as you dropped him, I saw an opportunity. I was like, he's a little bit worse at batting, but he is a bit better at pitching, so he does have more depth. He does add to the pitching depth, and he had 10 in fielding rather than 9 in fielding, so I figured that he was just a raw defensive upgrade over Chandler. So I picked up Butch, and I didn't know it at the time, but that was probably the biggest and most important move of the draft I had made. Because once the detailed stats came out, it turned out that someone made a horrible mistake giving Chandler Huggins a 5 out of 5 arm rating, because Chandler Huggins' arm actually sucks. Let me look it up real quick, actually. Chandler Huggins, throw power 40.
Oh, wow.
Butch throw power was 88.
88, yeah.
I'm like, how did someone screw that up so monumentally? I'm still shocked to this day how I managed to dodge a bullet there. Dodge the bullet I did, and I had put together a really solid defense. I played some preseason games, and they were absolutely awful. I had never done any better than I played 10 preseason games against the indoor and the backyard, and my best result was a +3. I actually played against Aesnop's Purple Sox at the time. They were the Blue-Red Sox, I believe, and I actually scored 7 runs on them. And I'm like, wow, this is actually a really good game. And someone on that team ended up hitting a cheesy home run to the left field corner at Steele Stadium, and got a 3-run homer there and only made it 7-5, so I only got a +2. So yeah, I actually kept track of my preseason results. I went 1-9 in preseason. 1-9. The only team I actually beat was Sisu. Sisu's Diamondbacks that ended up going 13-1 in the indoor. I beat them in a preseason scrimmage by a score of 3 to -2 because he actually lost my junior athletics AI.
It was a game he didn't restart, I'm assuming. Oh, sorry. We can cut that out.
No, that's common knowledge now. I'm just
I distinctly remember him streaming that at the time. He definitely did stream that game.
That's telling.
Because I remember I remember watching it. I remember watching him play that game in the Discord. But yeah, I played in the let's see here. I played in the front yard. I played against, let's see here. I had Silver Bullets Giants, who I beat 2-0 and I beat I got a +2 and a +13 against them. He was also brand new, and I think he had an extremely hard time hitting because of the scum issue, because scum hadn't been fixed. I played against Skull Gaming Network's Marlins, which I was really lucky in the first game, and I got like a +14. Maybe it's a +12 or something like that. I scored a lot of runs, and I thought it was a fluke. I played against Visery's Hornets, and I beat them like 7-1. I got like a +6. And then my fourth game, I was playing against Toast Twins, and Julie Dunkel was a normal pitcher. Julie Dunkel was a typical pitcher, but I believe it was Jack Joseph who got an absolutely massive pitching boost and displaced Julie and put Julie in center field. As a result, Julie Dunkel was just absolutely swarming the outfield. I could not do a thing against them. I lost to the AI 2-1 in extra innings. It was so bad. Then I played against Hit Ace's Dodgers. The Dodgers were originally drafted by Jared Johnson, who had turned out to have been cheating by playing on easy mode at the time. It was discovered by realizing that the opposing defensive alignment was incorrect based on what should have been the setup based on hard mode, because I believe on easy mode they just set everyone up randomly, and someone was pitching who absolutely should not have been pitching. So he was putting up big numbers, but then he was discovered and outed, and then Hit Ace came in to replace him, and Hit Ace put up even more ridiculous numbers. Although Hit Ace was stifled against my junior athletics in our first matchup, it was at Steel. He hit like 3 home runs. He hit like 1 single and 3 home runs, and that was it. Like, the junior athletics absolutely just annihilated him as far as, like, the AI defense was concerned. But unfortunately, I only got a +4, and he won a 4-4 tiebreaker. And I would have won. I absolutely would have and should have won if it weren't for the fact that in the top of the 6th, I beat out a throw to first base, and I ended up getting out because I overran first base by click mashing the sprint.
Been there.
Done that.
Based on what happened after that, I would have gotten an additional run. I'm still angry about it. But what was the worst was that in the bottom of the 6th, AI Leah Wayne hit the home run that made the 5-0 game into a 5-1 that caused me to lose.
She was all over the place, sounds like.
Yes. And then in week 9, it was match of the week, and I was determined to absolutely annihilate this Dodgers team because they had Gretchen Hasselhoff at catcher. She's literally the worst catcher in existence. I discovered after some film study, I discovered that you were able to steal third base off Gretchen from the beginning of the game with the overwhelming majority of base runners. And that's precisely what I did. I stole like 20-something bases against Gretchen in our second game, and I put up 6 runs in the first and 11 runs in the second, just absolutely obliterating that defense like I absolutely should. And then Ronnie Dobbs came into pitch, and Ronnie Dobbs' pitch, I hated it because it seemed like it violated physics. I had never seen him pitch before, and he throws a lot of heat. He threw it so slow. He throws heat so slow, and then all of a sudden it just speeds up super ridiculously fast. And literally no other pitcher in the game does this, to my knowledge. It just confused me so much. I could not do anything. I did eventually score a few more runs, and I did eventually force Ronnie off the mound. I was up 18-0. I was at a +21. And it was absolutely gigantic to me. I felt like, oh my god, I'm going to obliterate him. He only scored 4 runs against me at freaking Steel Stadium, no less. The AI's gonna destroy him at Du Bois. And he scored a +21. He scored a +21 in match of the week. He enjoys hitting to right field over and over again, and that's where Ray Tran was. Ray Tran is absolutely awful at defense, and he just kept hitting it there over and over and over again. And I would have beaten him by 1 run were it not for the fact that in the top of the 6th, AI Leah Wayne hits a solo home run again. Exactly what happened in week 5. And I was just so angry Like, I was asked to come on to talk after the game, because it was featured on Match of the Week. I was asked, like, do you want to, I was DM'd, like, do you want to come on? And I told them, hell no. I don't know if that kind of language is acceptable here. Like, I apologize for that, but
I think it's fine.
You're fine.
But my God, like, I wanted to cry myself to sleep. I was so angry. It's like, not only did I just lose a game that I absolutely 100% should have won, I also felt like I was ruined for the rest of the season. Like, my playoff hopes were dead because Hit Ace put up the blueprint on how to absolutely annihilate my defense. Hit to right field over and over and over again. That's all you have to do, and you beat this vaunted junior athletics defense. Like, I created like a sound plan to build the defense. I didn't realize just how incredibly good that defense was. I didn't realize I had struck gold in the draft until like halfway through the season when I was like 5-2, and nobody had done better than a +6 at the halfway point of the season. And in the end, the junior athletics finished 11-3. They only gave up 70 runs, including the 21. They only gave up 5 runs a game on average. And if you take out that 21, that's like, let's see here, 50 divided by 13, that's like less than 4 a game on average. Less than 4. It was legendarily good. Granted, it was against the front yard conference, but still, like, it was that moment when I realized I have the greatest defense ever built in RBBL history. I need to take this thing as far as I can. And that I did. Throughout the season, I was studying the opposition super closely. In week 4, Mystery played all of his games at once. And then he just started playing around with the code. And he went deep into the code, and he eventually discovered all the detailed stats. The things that tell you all the swing power, the arm strength, the coordination, the intelligence and aggression. Like, there were people who were talking about how some people just throw and some people just don't, and some people just stand there. Nobody had any explanation for why at the time. Then all of a sudden, it was all right there. And I just dove into the stats like an absolute total stat hound. I just read and read and read and read and read. My God, it was the treasure trove of information. It was my lifeline. And it was also a resource for me for a practice. Because at the time, like, you obviously cannot play against teams that you're slated to play against in the future, but you can scrimmage against other teams. I created a scrimmage file where I played against a whole bunch of indoor teams and backyard teams, and I would carefully study the indoor and backyard lineups and try to figure out which teams had players similar to the ones that I was concerned about for my upcoming game in the front yard. Like, if there was a third baseman that had a really strong arm, I would try to find maybe not identical if it weren't possible, but maybe someone with a similar arm strength to see if I could beat out throws to first with grounders headed that way. Now, obviously, it wasn't a perfect measure because there's different coordination, there's different speed, and all that sorts of things, but it was a reasonably good approximation, and I grinded and prepared the absolute heck out of every game. I played an average of like 3 or 4 hours worth of scrimmages before every single game, regular season and postseason. It was a big fat grind. And I could do that at the time because it was over the summer. I didn't have, any teaching responsibilities during that season. And when we got to like week 10 or so, the school year was coming up. I played my last 5 or so games within like 1 week of each other, so that I didn't have to worry about it. I figured my playoff hopes were dead anyway. But lo and behold, I finished 11-3, and I got the top front yard seed, front yard conference champions. And then I played against Keese, K13S. He's like the second best backyard baseball player of all time, at least at the time. Second best. He was second in the backyard league. He was 10-4 against probably the most difficult schedule ever assembled. And he had the top ranked defense of the backyard league. And I absolutely, I was able to come up with a decent plan for most teams. I could not come up with any plan for Keese's Cubs. I could not get anything figured out. And to make matters worse, The Cubs were the absolute most unpleasant preseason experience I had had. I was losing like 6-0 to the Cubs during a preseason scrimmage because I absolutely hated Cement Gardens. Like Cement Gardens, the ball just bounces everywhere. There's all sorts of these weird things going on. But then I had learned so much more. I had gotten so much better, and I actually used a wire mouse. Like, part of what got me so much better at backyard baseball is that I was actually using a mouse during the season. I was playing on a trackpad during preseason.
That will help for sure.
A laptop trackpad. Yeah, I ordered a USB wired mouse to actually play with a mouse during the actual season, and that was significantly better. So then I played against the Cubs, and I did significantly better than I thought I would. I only scored 7 runs in the first 5 innings. In the top of the 6th, Todd Xavier hit a home run into the alley, and it felt incredibly vindicating because the Cubs AI actually hit 2 grounder home runs along the third baseline, 2 of them in that particular game. I gave up 3 runs, but Todd Xavier hit a line drive home run over to the alley in the left side after like 1 or 2 bounces. And even with only 32 batting power, that's still astonishing to me. And that was 3 runs out of the 5 that I scored in that inning to ultimately win 9-6. And then game 2 was on Match of the Week later that same evening. And it was an incredible defensive showcase for both teams. Game 2, I was at home at Du Bois Diamond. Both teams, absolutely great defenses. I scored 3 runs in the first, but I was, held to not much more than that after that. But the pivotal moment of that game, that playoff game, came in the bottom of the 5th. I had Holly Franklin at the plate. Holly Franklin was batting absolutely terrible for me throughout the season. She bat less than 400. Because I was misusing her. I was using her as a grounder hitter because she had like tier 4 speed, and I was thinking I could beat out some grounders with her, but her contact was so bad that she would miss so much. I struck out like 47 times in the regular season, and Holly, Butch, and Sally together accounted for 35 of them. That's what poor contact does. Holly Franklin was at the plate, and Nan Porter standing at first, and Sally Dobbs standing at third. I was only up 4-0 at the time. 4-0 in the bottom of the 5th at home. So I needed a bonus run. I needed it by any means necessary. I was super desperate. So I stopped and thought for a moment, and then I realized something. Sally can run. Sally isn't particularly slow. So what I thought at the time was, I'm going to have Nan Porter steal second base, intending to sacrifice her. I was intending to sacrifice Nan Porter because at the time, Keese's Cubs had A-Rod at shortstop and Lisa Crockett at second. And I actually had players that had identical arms to both of them. I have Wendy at catcher, and I also had Holly Franklin, who shares stats with Lisa Crockett. And what I figured was, as long as either A-Rod or Lisa took the time to tag out Nan, that would buy enough time for Sally Dobbs to make it all the way home without having to risk Holly Franklin's at-bat. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to go for it. I'm going to sacrifice Nan. I send Nan, I take a pitch, I send Nan. There was only 1 out at the time, so I realized I could sacrifice when I realized I only had 1 out. So I send Nan, I take the pitch. Susan Gore, the Ichiro clone, is behind the dish. She throws an absolute bullet to second base. Nan has no shot. A-Rod catches it. And then the moment the ball leaves Susan's hand, Sally takes off from third. And I am sprinting Sally like crazy. I don't care what happens to Nan. I'm just focused on sprinting Sally. And then the throw comes back. And Susan has to run forward a little bit. And then pick it up and then run back, and Sally just barely won that foot race. Me having no Wendy's across the diamond strength at the time, I figured it could work. But the next pitch came, and I hit the ball to right field. Jessica Wassersauce dropped it, and Carlos Ocampo, the center fielder, has a weak arm to throw it in, so Lisa Crockett had to come out to third. And at the time, I did not know that Nan wasn't tagged out. I did not know that Nan was standing on second base. But then as soon as I saw her there, I'm like, wait, what's she doing there? And then I send her, and I have her round third off the error. And then I get her all the way home, and she makes it just barely in time. And now I'm sitting at 6-0 for a +7. And that play that I just described is what's now known as Nan's Gambit. What happened was Nan took off for second. I was intending to sacrifice her, but when A-Rod picked up that ball, he threw it back to home plate and did so without actually tagging out Nan. And when I found out that this happened, I went to the commissioner, and I went to, who was Yuria at the time, and I went to JBA, and I showed them a clip of this play, and I'm like, this isn't cheese, is it? Because I was deathly afraid that this was cheese. I thought that I had done an exploit that I never knew was possible. And then I was told from both the commissioner and JBA, no cheese, because I didn't turn around any runners. And I'm like, my God, that was a relief. I thought I was scared to death, because I don't stream, I can't replay the game. So I thought I was going to get penalized -5, and I'm only at +2 or something. But it happened. And what happened next, in the top of the 6, Keys on his end, he hit a 3-run home run to go up 7-0. So now he's sitting at +7. And then Kenny Kawaguchi's at the plate, thrown out at first, and it's a 7-7 tie. But I win because of the home multiplier. I just pulled off one of the biggest upsets in postseason history, and I was screaming when it happened. I could not believe it. I was beside myself. It took me minutes to regain my composure in time to actually talk on the week commentator. But what the crazy thing of it all is, if the play in question had happened the way I intended it to happen, then I would have lost, because I intended to sacrifice Nan Porter. And if Nan Porter were out at second base, then Nan Porter wouldn't have crossed the plate to become the winning run. So then I went on to the semifinal series against JY, who had scored a 50 against Wizards Wombats in Game 2, and then won a match of the week in Game 3. And then I had to avenge Wizard, and he had a bad catcher. I stole 20-something bases off him in both games, and I absolutely blew him out both times to the tune of 20-plus runs because I just kept abusing a bad catcher. I believe the catcher was Sheila Basanti at the time.
And I think JY had Betty at pitcher too, so you had slow pitcher and catcher.
Yeah, he did have Pete Wheeler at third base, but Pete Wheeler at third base, Pete Wheeler ran away from the. I observed that Pete Wheeler ran away from the ball a lot. I was worried about Pete's strong arm and his ability to get to the ball really quickly, but Pete just ran away from the ball as if he wasn't even aware that it was there. He is much, much better in the outfield than he is at third base. I was befuddled by Pete's behavior at the time. But anyway, yeah, that was actually a surprisingly easy series win, despite the fact that in Game 1, JY scored 16 runs on my defense in Game 1. I'm like, oh geez, that's a lot. That was only the second time anyone had ever scored double digits on the junior athletics. Only the second time ever. But then in the second game, he only got a +5. So yeah, I obliterated that because I was able to take advantage of his flawed defense. And then the World Series. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on the left side of the bracket that I thankfully was not a part of. There was the issue with Sisu not being able to produce recordings. There was the issue of Hit Ace pulling off the upset over number 1 Aesnot by 50ing him twice. And then Hit Ace and his Dodgers ended up having to drop out because of some IRL issues. And what ended up happening as a result was everyone else just kind of eliminated themselves through an absolutely bizarre set of events. And as a result, I had to play against the Montana Floss, known in-game as the Seattle Mariners. JBA, he had this incredibly unique strategy of just groundering everything to the left and just doing tons and tons and tons of grounder ball and picking players who had bad batting stats on purpose in order to foul off pitchers over and over again to just wear out their stamina until they were dead. So that was his strategy. And he had a pretty good defense set up all the way around. He had Kathy Wolf out in right field and a few other pieces. He had Jeff Bagwell caused me to win and get some decent scores and a really good score. My very last score was a +21 aided primarily by the fact that Dawn Cozart got boosted to 10 batting. So she hit 3 home runs that game. She was probably like a 100 batting, 100 power, like 95 contact day. She was just absolutely raking that day. She would not be denied. But yeah, while I was studying for the Mariner / Floss, most of the backyard players, most of the backyard coaches, there's not a whole lot of footage of the front yard, but the backyard players, there was a lot of recording footage that I could use because, you know, they're more experienced players, they're more transparent about their work. So I had a lot of film to work off of, and I noticed that Nick Souffle just doesn't throw to second most of the time for whatever reason. He does on occasion, but most of the time he just lets him go to first. He lets him go to second and throws to third instead. And I just kept taking advantage of that. It also helped me a lot that the Big City and Super Humongous Dome are top speed stadiums. We didn't know we didn't know at the time how it affected the speed tiers at the very beginning, but over the course of the season, we discovered how the speed tiers work. And I think shortly before the postseason, I got a more complete understanding of how the speed tiers worked to the point that I realized that when you go from like Courtney Valentino speed to Earl Abbot speed, from tier 2 speed to tier 3 speed, you get to first base almost a full second faster. So Nan Porter, Wendy, Parsons, Courtney Valentino, they were just speed demons on the base paths. And even their defensive pieces like Jeff Bagwell at third, even they couldn't throw out grounders at first against me. And that's a lot about how I did it. And yeah, I won the World Series by being carried by the greatest defense ever built at the time, and, you know, an excessive amount of study and grinding and just, you know, believing in my team and loving my team. I was in tears after I was in tears when I finished my broadcast because I couldn't believe I had done it. It was surreal. I couldn't believe it. And I had absolutely fallen in love with my players. Because at the very beginning of the season, I developed personalities for my players. I'll tell you about my Pink Sox later on in the broadcast. We're sticking with the athletics right now. I won't go into my athletics personalities now, but I had used the stats of my players to kind of get an idea of how my players would work in like a real world like story context. I used the stats, and I used some of my personal experiences as well as a little bit of their names and their genders and just all sorts of stuff, just to try to come up with stuff. And I loved them as if they were family. And I had them chime in the Discord from time to time. And whenever I was watching someone stream Backyard Baseball, I'd have some of my players just like talk, because like I would watch some of the indoor and backyard games, and I'd have some of my players talk about like, these are the pros. These are the people we can learn from. And who knows, we might even have to study them in the playoffs. So we might as well learn as much as we can about them. And I just have them, chime in. I'd have them be fun. I'd have them be wholesome and sweet. And when I took this incredibly strong defense as far as I did in combination with my offensive strategy, it was just, wow. It's just indescribable at this point. And now I have a defense that's nowhere near as strong, so I have to do a whole lot more heavy lifting on the offensive end. But I had burned myself out of Backyard Baseball big time at the time. I didn't play Season 8, and I didn't feel like playing Season 9 either, but I did offer myself to be a substitute if necessary. And I ended up playing the first 3 games of Season 9 for Haznop, who was moving at the time. And I got 3 more wins there with another very strong defense. So I essentially was known as like the defensive guru, sort of, kind of. But yeah, that's how Season 7 happened, and that was basically the summation of my experience.
Yeah, Season 7, that just seems like so long ago, and like yet it was just over 2 years ago.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like that long ago to me because, you know, I hadn't played nearly as much Backyard Baseball between now and then. I know you guys played Season 8 and Season 9, so it feels like forever ago. To me, it doesn't quite feel that way. Although, now that I'm playing with, now that I've played several more teams, and now that I have an entirely new team, I'm starting to kind of see the junior athletics as my players less and less compared to before. Because like every time I watch a game in Season 8 and Season 9, I'd be like, oh, there's Ray Tran at the plate. Let's go, big play, Ray. I'm like, oh yeah, there's Courtney. You go, gymnast. We love you. And all sorts of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think I've only played. Who have I played against? I played against Todd Xavier earlier today, and I believe I played against I played against Holly Franklin on the Wombats this season, and I think that's it. I don't think I've played against any other.
Did you play against Wendy, maybe?
I never played Wendy Parsons. Wendy's on the Melonheads, I believe.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I did play against Ray Tran in season 9. In season 9, I actually got a plus 18. I stole 26 bases off the Pirates in season 9 because Ray Tran was the starting pitcher, and for some stupid reason, the catcher decided to be the first pitcher to sub in. And it's really funny because, everyone knows how much I love my players and how I kind of build lore and personalities around them. I forgot. I believe it was him who called me out for absolutely eviscerating Ray Tran's arm at catcher by stealing 26 bases off of him. And then I tried to atone for it by giving him his favorite flavor of Gatorade after the game.
What's his favorite flavor of Gatorade?
Orange.
Okay.
Same as mine. I didn't actually assign him a favorite flavor of Gatorade. I just told him that it was his favorite, whatever it was. But now that you put me on the spot, I just told you my favorite flavor. I don't like the weird, random, esoteric flavors.
I'm with you.
Orange.
I like the classics.
Yeah. Orange, lemon lime, and fruit punch in that order.
What about cool? Will you do Cool Blue?
No, I don't do blue at all.
And Cool
Those
Blue,
are the only 3 Gatorades I'll drink.
For sure. And I'm yellow, and then orange and red are tied at 2. Yellow one.
Okay, here's the thing. I hate it when people name Gatorade by their colors. Do not name Gatorade by colors. Name them by flavors, because there are several different.
I'm describing
that,
but I'm describing it.
No, you aren't, because there are several different yellow.
So are you telling
Gatorade.
me yellow Gatorade isn't yellow?
Dude,
it's a descriptive adjective.
The most descriptive adjective of Gatorade is their flavor, because there are different flavor Gatorades with the same color. If you gave me a yellow Gatorade, I would not drink it because I could not confirm that it's actually lemon lime.
What about the other orange Gatorades?
I said orange because it's orange flavored Gatorade, but if you gave me like a mango orange, if you gave me an orange colored Gatorade without telling me it was orange flavored Gatorade, I wouldn't drink it.
But you were describing it based on the color, right?
What?
You were describing it based on the color, right?
No, I wasn't.
I'm just trolling. Yeah, I'm trolling.
I think it's confusing because orange is both the color and the flavor. This is kind of funny.
Also, hey, I would be curious. Can you name another yellow Gatorade flavor?
Yeah, I don't think there's any. Is there actually another yellow Gatorade?
I definitely know of some existing, but I can't name any. I just know that it's not lemon lime.
So if I say yellow, what percentage of people are going to know that I'm talking about lemon lime?
95%.
And why say more word when less word do trick? Anybody?
Because it is not grammatically proper, sir.
All right, that's enough of the semantic weeds.
So this is a classic case of educational big brain research level English versus the common folk.
Who's who?
That's how I view it. Because I'm
just kidding.
I mean, I'm a teacher, and Wiz is a counselor, right?
Yes, I am a counselor.
Yeah, so I guess I'm more the teach the content, be the academic sort of guy, and Wiz is more like the, help counsel the students to, be the best they can be, whatever it is they need to do, regardless of whether it's in this particular class or not. So I can see that dichotomy, yes.
I just believe in Socratic method, and so I think that by us looking at the whole conversation about Gatorade flavor and how we describe them, I think it just gives us all a better, well-rounded understanding of the situation.
Perhaps, but when you have people that when you've got like a picky eater and picky drinker like me that need to be accommodated, you need to ensure that you're not, duping them into possibly drinking something that they really do not want to drink. So in that case, precision and better descriptiveness are absolutely in order.
Okay, you be on the lookout for another yellow Gatorade for me.
No, I know there is 2 different blue Gatorades.
There's like a handful.
There's
of blue.
Several different blue Gatorades.
But I described blue by its name. It's Cool Blue.
Yeah, because there's Cool Blue, and then there's like Glacier Freeze, and then there's like the purple one.
That's not good enough for Mellow. You're going to have to give it the name, Nate.
I don't know what the purple one's called.
I mean, here's the thing. I don't know the entire library of Gatorade, because whenever I need to go get Gatorade to play slow pitch softball or something, I just look on the label to see if it has one of my 3 desired flavors. And when you look at the other Gatorades that are like purple or blue or whatever, like, I don't look at them carefully because I know I don't want them.
Well, and luckily for you, you don't have to look very hard because there's only one yellow Gatorade. I'm just kidding. I actually know they used to have a lemonade, but I don't know if they make it anymore.
Oh, yes, I do remember seeing a lemonade somewhere.
That has like a totally different branding or labeling on it, I believe.
I don't even remember. It was also a different colored yellow. It was more muted, but I digress about Gatorade colors.
Yes. So, anyway, I guess if we're, continuing my timeline of, how I got to this point in, like, my backyard baseball career, I guess I might as well tell a little bit about, like, how the Pink Sox came to be. That sound good?
Sure. Let's get into Season 10 stuff.
All right, Season 10. So, I think one of the most things I'm well known for as far as my backyard baseball gameplay is putting together these incredibly intricate plans and pinpointing every little weakness on the opposing team to try to figure out what to do, when to do it, how to execute it, and just like milk every last drop out of optimization for my team. And it was considerably easier to do that in Season 7 than it is to do now. And the primary reason for that is because in Season 7, we were just using the original B file. And the B file has certain limitations as to how the AI defenses can be built. So I told you during my Season 7 discussion, at the time, there was a whole bunch of different tables that gave different levels of prioritization as to who pitches, who goes to first base, who goes to shortstop, and who goes to catcher. And then you could set up second base, third base, and the outfield however you wish. But what's happened since then is that people have developed a B file that would not only eliminate good day and bad day boosts, for which you could get really unlucky or really unlucky. And those who weren't streaming, there was, always some concern about people like me who don't stream. Like, are they just waiting for good rolls? But now that that's ended, that's no longer a concern for any of us. And if you watch some of my Season 7, you'll notice I got plenty of bad rolls throughout the season. My rematch with the Dodgers actually had Wendy Parsons nerfed to Fabian tier, which is part of the reason why I didn't get as much offensive production against the Dodgers in that match of the week as I wanted. But I still stole a base with a Fabian speed tier Wendy, so that was fun. Anyway, defenses, top tier, well-built defenses are much easier to build than they used to be in Season 7. Actually, I believe it's the Astros. What's the description for the Astros again? The Texas Astros. The Texas Astros in the front yard, they actually beat the Junior Athletics this season by 1 run in terms of fewest runs allowed as an AI. They gave up 69, the Junior Athletics gave up 70. And part of how you can build these incredibly strong defenses is that this B file no longer uses those prioritization tables for pitching, first base, shortstop, and catcher. You can place them anywhere you want. It used to be, if you drafted a player like Chico Papas would go immediately to catcher, and unless you had a pro catcher, which I believe was limited to Jason Kendall and Mike Piazza and their clones at the time, My Piazza's arm is 100% not at all suitable for catcher, and Jason Kendall does have a decent arm, about the same arm strength as Wendy Parsons, who I had at catcher, so it's decent. If you drafted a player like Chico Papas, who went straight to catcher, you are basically committing yourself to a hyper-offensive team, because you are basically accepting that you're going to give up double-digit steals week after week after week. And since we have been able to build a B file that lets us put any player anywhere we want in the AI, that's no longer the case. So as a result, I stole like 143 bases in season 7. That's like the third most ever in the Lulu era, I believe, and it was number 1 in season 7. Courtney Valentino by herself stole 39 of them. I had her lead off and grounder to start just about every game, except the ones against extremely strong defenses like the Cubs. And she would just ground her way onto first, and then she would steal second off the majority of the front yard teams I had played, because the majority of the front yard had subpar catchers. But that's no longer going to be the case. Most of the teams I play against have much better aligned, better set up, more sophisticated defenses. So what that means is, if I'm going to put in hours upon hours upon hours of optimization, the returns are going to be much, much lower. So I had basically resigned myself to the fact that I am probably not going to win a World Series again, and I am probably not going to put in hours upon hours of grinding again. So I wanted to commit myself to, a chill, friendly, fun season that had, some preparation go into it. I do do a little bit of film study. I do write out all the offensive and defensive alignments. I basically write the opposing defense on a sheet of paper aligned to a baseball field. I write the arm strengths immediately below, and I write their coordination and aggression immediately above. I also note the batting strength and batting contact of each person in the lineup, and I put notes around some of them where you have a string of weak hitters. Like for the Giants, for instance, I noted that Johnny Omar, Scotty Roth, Todd Xavier, all of them have 32 power or less, and all of them are tier 4 speed or lower. That's probably the most perfect double play opportunity I had seen all season. So I would highlight these sorts of things, and I would also note their pitcher strengths and note their pitcher stamina and all their pitcher stats, so that I would know who was coming in when, including their relief points, including their stamina, knowing if I was going to be able to grind their pitchers down, or if I was just, they're going to stay there forever. That sort of preparation. I do that. I only put 45 minutes to an hour's preparation for each game now, instead of 4 or 5 hours preparation for each game. So yeah, much, much more chill for me this season. And my personal commitment to making this a chill season was solidified when I chose the name Red White Sox. So the reason why this name came about was because when I was in college, when I was in undergrad, I went to the University of Maryland, and they have a club, a performing gymnastics troupe called the Gymkhana Troupe. It was there where I learned how to do some basic tumbling skills and flip on trampolines. And we would do all sorts of, acrobatic, gymnastics acts. Now, I wasn't anyone particularly special on it. 2/3 of the troupe came in with no experience, but 1/3 of the troupe came in with experience, and they're crazy good. I was not one of the crazy good guys. I was a total beginner. But I had so much fun, and it was such a killer workout, that it was essentially the best non-academic decision I had ever made in college, joining that troupe. And I had made my best ever friends. They were super outgoing, they were super friendly, they were super wholesome. They were definitely much more extroverted than I was, but opposites attracted. I created an unofficial slogan for them. Come for the trampoline, stay for the family. Shout out to you guys in the Gymkhana Troupe, if anyone just so happens to be listening to this for whatever reason.
I'm sure they all are.
Yeah. And when I was learning trampoline in my very first day on the troupe, I was barefoot, and they're not like a backyard trampoline. These are rectangular webbed trampolines that you see in the Olympics. They are serious business. They give you much more propulsion. They give you much more height, and they're much more tightly bound too. They are serious Olympic trampolines. And because of the tight, scratchy webbing, when I was learning basic bed skills like the seat drop, swivel hips, back drop, doggy position, and the front drop, that kind of thing. I was scratching the top of my foot against it so many times, learning some of the basic positions and maneuvers, that I ended up cutting my foot. Like, they were like, dude, you're bleeding. And I'm bleeding? And then I looked down and I'm like, oh, I'm bleeding. So doing that trampoline barefoot, like most people did, simply wasn't an option for me. My feet seem to be too sensitive. Unfortunately, standard socks would be too slippery for the trampoline so that it wouldn't be safe. But I did have some Sky Zone trampoline socks. They were grip, so that you wouldn't slide around while on the bed surface while doing trampoline. And their normal sock color is orange, which I find kind of tacky. But during October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, they sold pink ones, pink socks. And I thought they were cute, so I wore them instead of the orange ones. And I landed on the team name Red White Sox and nicknamed myself the Pink Sox as a commitment to just have fun and enjoy myself playing this season with the unbridled joy of flying around in a gym doing some flips. Some people might have been wondering why my first round pick of the Athletics and my second round pick here with the Pink Sox, why did I choose to make Courtney Valentino a gymnast in my lore? It was primarily inspired because of my wonderful time in the Gymkhana troupe. She's super sweet and super wholesome, super supportive and loves hugs, mostly because of my time in the Gymkhana troupe. So yeah, that's that. So the Pink Sox, I wanted to build another strong defense, naturally, but I also wanted, more offensive firepower. I wasn't exactly sure how I was going to do it. I just figured I'd, draft some pieces, kind of build it together from there, see what happens. I picked up Davy Marian in the first round. He was the highest talent. He was the most talented player available to me at the time. Actually, hang on. Before then, I actually had the second draft slot available to me. Pepsi Boy, although I think he's renamed himself to King Pepsi. However you name him, Pepsi wanted the second pick, and he wanted it super, super badly. So I wanted to trade my draft slot to him in exchange for him giving me one earlier pick, and I give him a later pick. And I actually made the exact same trade with Aznop in Season 7, a very similar trade, and it went through without a hitch. And when I attempted this trade, it got rejected by the admins. And I was admittedly trying to get a little more value than I would have liked, because I knew that I was trying to get a bit more value out of that particular trade than what probably would have been good for Pepsi. But I had to revise the trade, and for some reason, they also would not let me just trade draft slots straight up. So instead, I just simply traded 8 of our 9 picks. So he got the second overall pick, and I got pick number 22 at literally the very end of the first round, and I would also have pick number 24. So I have 2 really good players to start with and build a team around. And I picked up Davy Marian and Courtney Valentino. I'm not the sort of guy that relies on superstars to just absolutely obliterate everything. I'm the sort of guy that tries to, find some really good pieces to play a role, and then just, build a solid all-around team that's greater than the sum of its parts, because that's what the junior athletics were, greater than the sum of their parts. Todd Xavier, he was an absolutely spectacular AI pitcher, giving up only an average of 5 runs a game. And anecdotal evidence seems to suggest that it was because he seemed to force a lot of bad hits, a lot of bad dribblers, and had one of the league's best infield surrounding him to, make the throw to first, make the throw to second, all that good stuff. So I just, try to find all the really good pieces, and once I got a sense of what my team was going to do, I would, look for more targeted specifics. I picked up Hillary Vargas in the third because she had relatively low relief pitcher points, and she was essentially the perfect prototypical catcher, and Hillary Vargas, based on historical draft data, seems to go around that point. And then I saw both Luann and Grace Tipton go significantly earlier in the third. When it came to my turn in the fourth round, I was surprised to see that Earl Abbot was still there. I wanted Stuart Sullivan, but Stuart Sullivan got scooped up. But I saw that Earl was there, and I'm like, you know what? This will be my pitching round. I had two picks within three picks in the 4th round, and that was where I picked up Earl Abbot and Whitney Singh. They were going to be my pitching backbone, so that I could not only would they be good for pitching, but they would also have such high relief pitching points that I could be reasonably confident that when one of them got tired or gave up 5, the other one would be a more than serviceable pitcher to come in and take their spot, and I would put them in the field in places where it wouldn't be bad for them to be. I then scooped up Isabelle in the 6th because she had a strong bat and a strong arm. I figured she could lock down third base. And I picked up Libby Futterman in the 7th. I was surprised that Libby fell as far as she did. I figured that, she's taller than most players. She'd be a solid first baseman. She's not really good on defense, but she doesn't need to be. And yeah, she is slow, which is problematic, but she would be the most powerful hitter on my team. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get a home run hitter. I picked up Libby. And then I picked up Artie in the 8th mostly because he was just best player available. There weren't many people with tier 4 speed left, and he had some decent pop in his bat for a tier 4 speed. And his arm, while not good, isn't awful for round 8. And I picked up Eckman Akers, and I was hoping and praying that I could scoop up Kimmy Eckman in the 9th round, and that I did. So I liked the raw talent. I like the raw talent on my team. I like it a lot, but I ran into a lot of trouble trying to set up a proper defensive alignment because Davy Marian and Isabelle Marelli have like 240 something and 230 something relief points respectively. So they're going to come in to pitch really early. They both are the strongest arms of my team apart from Hillary, who's behind the dish. And I just could not find places to make them effective on defense while also not putting a huge hole there for my relief pitchers. I like Earl on offense, but I don't like the defensive implications of Earl on defense because he can't do much of anything except run. He has a very weak arm. So once he leaves the pitcher's mound, wherever he goes, if he's drained of stamina, he's going to be much, much slower and thus a bigger defensive liability. So I put Whitney at 2nd and Davy in right to try to relieve that issue. I knew that I absolutely could not put a strong pitcher in center or left because because Eckman has a deep field, and if something gets past a tired Earl, that's basically an in-the-park home run. So I had to put Isabelle at shortstop, mostly because that's the place where a tired pitcher would do the least damage when Isabelle comes into relief. And I was dismayed for much of my season because my defense for much of the season was absolutely terrible. My AI defense, let me pull up the numbers here on my RBBL document, the S10 doc real quick. Performance data 03. Let's see here. They gave up 15 in week 1. Then in back-to-back in 5 consecutive weeks from week 6 through week 10. Week 6 through week 10, they gave up 14, 17, 14, 32, and 15. And at the time, following the 32 against the Twins, it was just, oh my god, they averaged giving up 15 runs a game. That's triple that of the junior athletics. It was an absolute disgrace to me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm putting up strong numbers, but I'm not putting up world-beating numbers. And I have to put up world-beating numbers if I'm going to, compete for a championship this year. So, but they've been doing a lot better lately. I was surprised. Their most recent performances on defense were 4, 3, 13, and 7. 8. 4, 3, 13, 8. And the 13 came from Lil Wah's Red Sox, who, they hit a bunch of homers anyway because they have like a ton of really good bats. So, yeah, that's the Pink Sox. Actually, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to upload a picture of my Pink Sox. I actually had, after writing their personalities, I had an artist friend commissioned to actually draw the Pink Sox as if they were, actual players. And in this Discord call, I'm posting a picture so you can see them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I also had this artist do the same thing for my junior athletics after my season 7 victory. So looking at this picture, top row from left to right is Courtney Valentino, the absolutely cheerful gymnast. Kimmy Eckman, who absolutely loves munching on candy. Whitney Singh, who is a big-time theater girl and absolutely loves singing and is a bit of a drama queen. And then Isabelle Marelli, who loves princesses and royalty and is polite to a comical degree and is desperate to not appear spoiled. In the middle row from left to right is Hillary Vargas, Libby Futterman, and Earl Abbot. Hillary Vargas, she is a regimented, strict disciplinarian. She is very serious, and you kind of need to be serious when you're behind the plate. She has an older brother who is a drum major in the marching band, and whenever the marching band is going into the football stadium at high school, Hillary is marching alongside them, and the parents think it's absolutely adorable, even though she thinks it's serious business. Libby Futterman, she is the oldest girl on my team, and she's kind of a motherly figure, a bit of a babysitter. She wants to become a babysitter when she's a little bit older, and she just loves kids, and she loves reading. She's very smart. She has a good head on her shoulders. And she's basically the one that looks after all the littlest kids of this team, making sure that they're not getting into trouble and that they're, enjoying themselves. She also cooks a really, really good pizza. Nate Tastic actually called Libby Futterman Pizza Girl because she is indeed a clone of Mike Piazza, who is supposedly the pizza man. It's a crime that Mike Piazza is not permanently in a red uniform, by the way. Putting Mike Piazza in a red hat essentially makes him look like a pizza man, so he does. He needs to be on a red uniform every season from now on. Earl Abbot, he's the only one on my team that has really good stamina, and he's also the fastest. So he's a cross-country runner, and because of his runs in cross-country, he really appreciates nature. He enjoys running around in the dirt trails, running around on the grass in the forest, and he got his pitching acumen because he's also a darts enthusiast. I've been reading my Facebook feed lately, and darts just seems to keep coming up. Darts is apparently huge in Europe, but around here you don't ever see a dartboard except in bars. But darts is apparently huge in Europe, and Earl Abbot is a darts fan, and that's where he got his pitching accuracy from, I guess.
Does he have heterochromia?
What?
Does he have heterochromia?
Two different color eyes. Yes, that was an artistic choice from the artist. Wendy Parsons also has that. Wendy Parsons also has that based on this. Wendy Parsons also has that. Whatever word you just said. Again, her creative liberties. Then on the bottom left, you see Davy Marian, who is a incredibly talented athlete, mostly because he has really good genes. His mother was a college basketball player and his father a college football player. But he doesn't really like the big hubbub of gigantic crowds and pressure. And he's a bit of a shrinking violet. He doesn't have much aggression. So I decided that he's a super talented athlete that just doesn't quite give his all because he's not quite sure how to handle the pressure of being a big-time athlete. And then on the bottom right, we have Artie Pimbleton, who is the youngest of my players, super enthusiastic. I loved trains when I was a kid, and I still enjoy trains to this day. Artie is a train enthusiast, and he either gets absolutely incredible skills when he hears a train whistle in the distance from a commuter rail station in the backyard sports neighborhood. He either gets, a super burst of inspiration, or he does something incredibly silly and fails. He's also, super enthusiastic, super hyper, and, plays off of, Courtney's playful energy a lot. So you can see him, super happy, just waving his arms open. He's the youngest player on my team. Definitely the least overall skilled on the team, which I feel like would be a consequence of being the youngest, so felt like that made the most sense. So yeah, that's the Pink Sox throughout the season.
It's a cool art style.
Yeah, I enjoy it a lot. Don't regret it one bit. They're adorable. And, just like the Pink Sox, just like the junior athletics, I love my Pink Sox to the very bone. I write a lot about them. I have them chime in on the Discord. Like, the thing about the generics is that Backyard Baseball is known for their incredibly, memorable characters. Like, the Backyard characters are absolutely iconic. And one of the things I thought about is that when you play against the generics, they don't express any personality at all. And it's like they're just completely, totally blank slates. And probably the reason why they are blank slates is because from the perspective of the player, every kid has a personality. Every kid has something that makes them tick, something that makes them run, something that makes them whatever the wonderful kid that they happen to be. But when you're a kid playing against other kids in a sports league that you never really go and see, you never see them out in the neighborhood ever unless you're just, happen to be walking around them. All you do is just play baseball games against them, and that's all you know them to be. As a result, when you play against them in Backyard Baseball, all you see them are just as opposing ball players, even though there's much more to them deep down. But I figured, you know what? Since there is much more to them deep down, and we don't know what it is, I'll just make them up. And that's essentially how I created this fictional lore behind the Backyard characters. Nothing that I've stated about the personalities with these characters is canon. Absolutely none of it is. It's just a way of, helping you relax and keep things in perspective, that this is really just a video game meant for very small children, featuring very small children playing a game that they love. And I want to keep, the environment lighthearted, as if they are actual kids. So they play around, they do kiddish things, they have wonderfully wholesome relationships. There's nothing incredibly dramatic about what I write. There's nothing, there's not really much in the way of conflict apart from extremely amusing things. Just after each game, they dogpile on each other if they win, no matter how big or small the win is, because, winning is just straight up joyful to them. And then win or lose, they go to the Valentino household and they just, do a whole bunch of activities. They watch Gravity Falls on TV. They sing in the karaoke machine. They play DDR. They eat some of Libby Futterman's wonderfully delicious pizza. Sometimes they go to the playroom and just roughhouse with each other because it's fun and it's what kids do.
Yeah, I know a lot of people kind of intrigued with kind of all the backstory that you've had on your team, but do want to kind of try to transition a little bit more into the actual.
Yes, absolutely. I'm looking at the time, and it's just, we've been talking for so long. It's so easy to lose track of time with this. I am so sorry.
No, you're good. It definitely was. It's definitely very engaging conversation, especially everything that you've gone through and everything that you've put into all your characters. So I just want to make sure we have enough time to cover some of the scores and kind of go into what the playoff situation is going to be looking like.
Absolutely. Wiz, you played in the front yard, right? Why don't you take the front yard scores for week 14?
All right. So we had the Astros, front yard. We had Bobby's Astros. They beat Matitude's Padres, and so we had a little bit of parity in week 13 and 14 with the wild card race. It ended up nothing really came to fruition. So Bobby continues to roll. Defense, as you alluded to earlier, Mello, is looking very good. And he goes into the playoffs as a 2 seed, and we'll see his divisional member, or his divisional foe, King Pepsi.
Definitely looking forward to seeing how that one turns out. Pepsi with the tying with Oops in the only ever tie in RBBL history, sitting at 9-4-1. Beginning at the Texas Astros home of Du Bois Diamond, I believe. That was my home field. That's another similarity. The Astros have 3 of my former junior athletics on them in Nan Porter, Sadly Dobbs and Butch Sherrod, and they have been anchoring an incredible defense that has a chance to match up with my Pink Sox in the World Series, knock on wood. They also have Marky DuBois as pitcher. And I remember being very excited that Marky DuBois went to a front yard team and not to a division rival of mine, so I would not have to face Sox boosted Marky. But now it's reality starting to set in that there is an outside chance that I might run into Sox boosted Marky in the World Series. And I was just like, oh, God, why? Please don't let this happen.
That would be a really interesting storyline if that does happen to be the World Series matchup.
It would, but Astros have got a long way to go, and I've got a long way to go, so it's not particularly likely. That's two separate teams having to win two separate series against some very, very high quality teams along the way. But it'd be an interesting storyline for sure.
Yeah, and this matchup really boils down to is which strategy is going to prevail: the defense of the Texas Astros and Bobby, or the offense of the Super Duper Diamondbacks and King Pepsi, especially with Henri Deschennes, Perry Marks. I know he's got a few others as well. That very, very homer-driven offense.
See here, I see Jennifer Goodfellow at 100 swing power, Perry Marks at 88, Zoe Mallory at 81, Sean Green at 82, and of course the infamous Henri Deschennes. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 200, that's two 100 bats, and 5 bats at 81 power or more. And his home field, where Game 2 will be played, Steel Stadium, will definitely work to his advantage there, but the home field of the Astros will be the DuBois Diamond, which will be in games 1 and 3. So it'll be considerably harder for Pepsi to do his thing there.
And then also that the Astros, putting up a 22 in their last game, so maybe they found something out offensively. Maybe they've been doing a lot more scrims or whatever. Maybe if they can score over 15 runs in a game, and plus with that defense, that's going to be a really tough out.
Yeah. I remember thinking about, people were talking like in season 7, they were saying like playing the junior athletics when they score 20 plus, as infrequently as it happened, scoring 20 plus, junior athletics would be nigh unstoppable. And I could say something similar about the Astros. If the Astros put up a gigantic number, they're basically unstoppable. That is a big if. Yeah, they were playing against the Padres, and my biggest score of the season came against the Padres, and I think probably the biggest contributor to that is that the Padres have a slow outfield. You could send liners over there, they'd have a hard time catching it. And their fast outfielder, their center fielder, which I believe was Chico, has a weak arm, so if you hit it out to the very middle and Chico's not under it, then that's extra bases. And I imagine that was probably what Bobby took advantage of.
Yeah, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. It should be a very intriguing matchup. I would not be surprised if this series went 3 games, but if I had to make a pick right now, I would have to lean with the Texas Astros. They had the better record during the regular season, and I think they'll win that in 3 games if I had to make a prediction right now.
I'm not one to make predictions. I don't want to generate any bad blood between me and anyone else.
I don't know if you have any predictions, Wizard, or if you want to abstain.
I don't know. I think Bobby has been Bobby has had a lot of good luck this season. If we were to look at strength of schedule, I don't know that we have a metric for that or could borrow one. His isn't the toughest. I think Pepsi was real up and down all year, though. I'd probably bet on the defense. I think sometimes people get a little tight in the postseason, but I really think it's a toss-up. I think if Pepsi's bats get going, then he's fine. Defense, you can't catch balls that go over the fence.
And then the next game in Week 14 was Silver Bullet and his Orioles putting up a +2 against the Royals. That was CRK taking over for Arco in that one. And I believe with that, win that is a franchise record for victories for Silver Bullet. So he's definitely starting to get the hang of it and making some good strides, and I'm really excited to see what he can do in the next season.
Steady improvement from Silver Bullet has definitely been encouraging, and the left side of his field, I remember being particularly stingy when I watched things on stream, so that definitely helped him out quite a bit as well.
I agree. Tough division. Lot of veteran prowess in that division. He built a really good team, and 4 wins is not bad. Definitely an improvement for him, and goes out with a win.
It's always good to have, for sure.
And then the next game was your team Wizard winning 6-2 over the Indians, which also was a substitute coach that was Maddox. So why don't you kind of talk about your team and this victory that you had going into the playoffs, clinching a playoff berth for you?
Yeah, so we were. I was kind of upset at first that I wasn't going to get to see Corn because Maddox had shown to have the ability to put up a little bit better runs or more runs than Corn. But yeah, anyways, we didn't score well. I think we scored 4 in the first and didn't get a whole lot going after that because we only scored 5 runs, one we got with the multiplier. So defense wasn't terrible. He's got Hellerman on the mound. He's got height on that team. I wouldn't want to play with him, but I think that on the AI side, that the defense has some pieces that can give people trouble if they're not finding the gaps. So, we semi-limp into the playoffs. I told Vis that I wasn't playing that well, but I'm looking at week 12 and 13, and I had better output. So I'm thinking about my last 2 0-1 weeks too, not being the greatest. But yeah, anyways, we're excited to get another crack at this. We split with them in the regular season, and we hope to make some magic happen in the postseason.
Yeah, and I remember it's going to be a rematch of what we had for week 1 was our match of the week, and that was just a tiebreaker game. That was really close, so could see this one is going to be really hard to predict, if especially since the records that and the results that have been going on, and also it depends on how serious Vizuri is going to be playing these games as well. Because when he's locked in, he's really locked in, and he's scoring lots of runs. So this one's really difficult to predict what's going to happen with this one.
I think Vis is going to say that they're over it, and then I think Vis wants a World Series and is capable of winning one. I think Vis is going to take both their teams, take every opportunity that they have. So I expect them to come out playing hard. I'm never going to bet against myself, but I would not be shocked if Viscery handles me.
Viscery's game knowledge is unparalleled, and Viscery also has a lot of skill. He's got Jay Green, Raphael Hendricks, and Parker Collum in the power bat department. Not a whole lot of speed, though. 4 out of his 9 players are tier 5 or worse. He does have Kathy Wolf, and he does have Jimmy Rollins and Jay Green that stand to benefit quite a bit from the enhanced speed of the playoff field, should he get there. Let's see here. He plays at Casa, doesn't he?
Yes.
Let me see here. Casa. So his outfielders, J-Roll, Annie Frazier, and Parker Collum. Some pretty good coordination, not a whole lot of aggression, particularly from Annie. So not sure if that might pose an issue if you were to send fly balls to center field at a place like Casa. And of course, there's TCA, which is the Wizards home park, and there's just a completely different dynamic at play there. Something that I very obviously haven't figured out because my matchup against your Rangers was just absolutely terrible. Although at the time, I believe it was like the end of the quarter when I was teaching, so I could not put in anywhere near as much preparation for that matchup. I don't actually know a thing about the Rangers, although I do have my strategy spreadsheet set up, and I'm looking at the Rangers right now. You've got a lot of tier 4 and tier 5 speed going on. And your tier 4 and tier 3 speed players. And your tier 3 speeds definitely stand to benefit on concrete quite a bit. And let's see here. You've got quite a few strong arms lying around, not so much in the outfield, however, which may pose an issue at Casa de Pablo. And I think that may be the biggest exploit that Visery might jump on. But yeah, it would not surprise me in the least to see Visery take this home, although there is a lot of competition in his way. You can never count out the Rangers at Tin Can Alley, which would, and should the Rangers hold serve at home, the Visery would have to take both Casa games, which definitely isn't a given, because he doesn't seem to like Casa a whole lot, from what I can tell. And
yeah, nobody does.
I guess you're cursed to play at Casa yet again, Wiz.
Mm-hmm.
I've only had one game ever at Casa de Pablo, and that was my Week 7 game at the Padres, and I scored 27 freaking runs, and I still don't find it enjoyable.
It's a desert out there.
Yeah, I had my team just like go to a milk bar after the game to recover, because so many of my players were just so tired. I sprinted them so much. After scoring like a double-digit inning, both of my primary pitchers were just absolutely dead, and I had to find Artie, who could pitch a couple things, and he got homered off immediately, and then I discovered that Isabelle Marelli has a right hook, so that's how I finished that off. But anyway, the Mets, they defeated the Melonheads 4-1 next. Speaking of the Mets.
Mm-hmm. And that was Oop's final regular season game with the Melonheads, according to him as of right now. I know other people have retired and unretired, so retired for now. Let's just put it at that.
Yeah. Lulu, Fabian, and Lindsay are all giving simultaneous hugs to him as we speak. He's been a wonderful coach to those three.
And next up, we had the Cubs and the Diamondbacks. Believe that was Battlehammer / Hines putting another substitute coach during this season. Came from the online league and did really well there, and he's put up some good scores with this team, and I'm really excited to see how he will do with drafting his own team moving forward. And Pepsi seemed to have a little bit of an off game there, but I'm sure he'll definitely rebound for the playoffs. And next up was your game that you just played right before we started this, Mello.
Yes, shortly before we began this podcast, I played, and then about an hour later premiered my game against the Giants. We won that by a score of 14-7. I scored 12 and then gained 2 bonus runs. Libby Futterman hit 2 home runs for me. One of them power, and one of them just a line drive where I just wanted to move Davy around, and I didn't expect to hit a homer. But Libby just has that power. It's absolutely incredible what she does. Everyone goes on and talks about how 87 power just isn't quite home run power. And I don't know, would you agree with that assessment, considering that she has 11 home runs on the season? Like, do you have to eclipse like 15 homers, like a homer a game, to be considered a quote home run power hitter?
I would say it's just part of it's just fear of when they step into the box, and also like, I mean, if you're timing the ball well, you can hit home runs with those mid-tier power bats. I just think like it's almost click and win with some of the 90 plus, 95 plus bats, and it's just like, because I had Piazza in season 5, and I don't remember how many, probably not that many, but the pop is in the bat. I just think it's not as consistent as the 90 plus bats.
Libby Futterman leads in RBIs, but I think she leads in RBIs because she's got such a great and consistent crew in front of her. I put Earl, Courtney, Hillary, and Davy in front of her, so she almost always has a litany of base runners ready. Sometimes she annihilates it, and sometimes she just utterly doinks it. There doesn't seem to be quite an in-between for her.
I think what I would say, that if you get 10 if you get 10 home runs with the 80 powers, you're doing pretty well with them. But if you have the 90 plus, you're hoping for at least 15 to 20. That would be kind of my guess on that, or my opinion on that.
Yeah.
I think you did really well with that, with Libby.
Yeah, which surprised me a little because like Davy has 87 power as well, but Davy, I don't aim for homers with him much because Libby's right behind him, and Davy, he has the speed to ground on if he happens to have nobody in front of him. Has 4 home runs on the season, and I think 2 of them were in the Parkers.
So that's probably why Davy didn't have as many home runs, is because you didn't utilize him as a power bat.
Yeah. I rarely use the power bat. Like when I only switch to the power bat when I feel like, okay, I need to send this deep. Whether I'm looking for a home run, or I'm looking for a ground rule double, or I'm looking for something to the effect of a sacrifice fly to free up first base for Whitney, who usually plays after Libby when I play on offense. Because like if Libby's standing on first base, that isn't good. Because Libby is very slow. And if Libby drives in 2 runs, but ends up standing on first, I'm like, 2 runs for 1 out, it's not a bad trade. And when she is very easily thrown out at second the following at-bat after Whitney's inevitable grounder, it's like, it's okay, Libby, you did your job, and just pat her on the head.
Yeah, so you won that, and that solidified the backyard playoffs. So you are going to be facing the Pirates, who beat the Fishes 5 to -1. That is Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury, this is his first time making the playoffs. He drafted a really, really, really solid defensive team for Cement Gardens. I know he has Vlad and Bagwell and Sosa, and just a very, very, very good team. I believe also he has Jerry Himshell, as he likes to be called.
Mm-hmm.
So very, very. Also, Olga, the batting average champion, or the batting crown, with a ridiculous 846 average.
Absolutely astonishing. Davy Marian was Davy Marian for my Pink Sox was definitely tailing her for quite a while. But Davy kind of fell off in the past 2 games, and now I think he's below 800, so definitely not going to touch her on that now.
I think my favorite thing with this backyard league is, and I looked at the other 4 or 3 leagues, there's a different team represented by each leaderboard stat.
Pirates, Red Sox, Twins, Braves, Marlins, Angels, White Sox, Wombats. Wow, that's 8 different ones.
Out of 11?
Out of 11, yes.
Which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of parity in the backyard league.
Oh, yes. One of the things I wanted to point out about not just the backyard, but in 03 in general, I was very pleased by the amount of parity that is in this league. Oh, in the 03 league. I don't know much at all about what's going on in the 01 league, but unlike season 8 and season 9, where coaches like AES and Emery and Uriah were just fielding absolute, and Vissery too. You had Vissery, Emery, Aesnop, and Uriah over the course of those 2 seasons, fielding just absolute monster teams, winning at least 11 games. And they just seemed like inevitable picks to go to the championship series. And they would just average like just shy of 20 a game. They're just annihilating teams left and right. And you feel like you have no shot. And I feel like there has been much greater parity, not only across the board, but at the top in particular. Unlike those previous seasons, there is not any one team in the entire backyard that you can point to as an overwhelming force that is going to dominate everyone. Everyone has weaknesses.
Yeah, I think that's the entire 03 side as well. I mean, you could make a case for all 8 teams for making the World Series, if not winning it, which is really cool to see.
Absolutely. I'm very relieved. I'm relieved that I don't have to see the Marlins at Cement Gardens again. And I am relieved that I don't have to play I'm relieved that I don't have to play the Twins at TCA, because my God, I am awful at TCA, and the Twins score like 30 runs on my god-awful defense. So hopefully hopefully my defense is better suited to, Eckman Acres, and, well, I'm playing at Cement. Jeez, I haven't been particularly good at Cement this season either.
Yeah, the Pirates' home field is at Paveway, but that's the benefit you have of having the number 1 seed, is that for the first round, you have Game 1 and Game 3 at Eckman, so even if you have a bad game at Paveway, you can rely on your home field of Eckman to advance if needed.
Indeed. I mean, 11-3, I'm still flabbergasted that I managed this, to be completely honest, considering the several weak performances my AI defense has had. I feel like I've been pretty lucky on several matchups, not the least of which, in fact, probably the most of which, was my earlier Pirates matchup. I played the Pirates in Week 8 at Eckman Acres, and I won by a tiebreaker victory at home, 14.4-14, and it was only because Isabelle Marelli hit an absolutely clutch home run in the bottom of the 5th. For back-to-back weeks, she did what I called the Isabelle. She pulled off the Isabelle. So what happened was, Earl is at the top of my order. Isabelle Marelli is at the very bottom of my order. I put Isabelle at the bottom because A, she has by far the lowest batting average on my team, and B, she can hit for power to move some of the runners at the bottom of the order around, thus freeing up first base for Earl Abbot, hopefully, if Isabelle can get a double or better. And then once Earl singles his way on, then a more powerful batter like Courtney can start to work some people around as well. So that's kind of my strategy around there. So what I do with what I call the Isabelle is swinging and missing intentionally on a 3-0 pitch that appears to be a ball. Or sometimes just, swinging at a meatball at 3-0 anyhow. I never swung 3-0 before this season, and I have seen the light. My God, it's incredible.
Well, don't let Crazy hear that.
If it's a pitch that I or whoever, whatever you like, if you look for it and it comes 3-0, swing at it. I mean, I don't know what the odds are of you getting that pitch, but if it's a pitch you come into an at-bat looking for it, I say swing at it.
I think a lot of Libby Futterman's home runs have just been me looking at a pitch and being like, you know what, that looks drivable, and then boom, I'm like, oh my God, Libby, what have you been eating? Or pizza?
That's it.
It's Wheaties infused crust. I don't know.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
But yeah, that matchup's going to be really intriguing. I didn't actually realize until you brought it up that the matchup that you had was a tiebreaker. So if the games are going to be that close, that's going to be grab your popcorn and just see what happens with that one.
Oh, they just happen to be that. Sometimes they just, happen to be that close. I mean, I obviously can't watch I can't manufacture matchups because I can't watch the other team. That'd be unsportsmanlike. So I say that's more of just a, happenstance. But both teams have proven that they are equipped to score some runs against these teams that seem to have really strong individual pieces on defense, but maybe not necessarily the most cohesively built, put together defense. I'm looking at my Tampa Bays on my strategy spreadsheet right now. They've got a lot of power hitters. They don't have a lot of speedsters. They have 1 tier 5 speed and 2 tier 6 speeds, but all 3 of them have at least 79 power. So they're not exactly primed to get doubled up on to generate power-ups. They also have 4 players that have at least 90 throw power. Jerry Winchell's a very weak arm, and I noticed that Olga Tollefson tends to come in first from right field. So, Olga also has a very weak arm. So once I guess what I was thinking when I played my matchup in Week 8, and what I'll probably continue to think in this matchup, is that once Olga comes in from right field, because her 254 RP is significantly higher than Gail Weinman's 214, that Jerry Winchell is a tired Jerry Winchell in right field is going to be a serious liability. So that's probably where I'm going to aim, especially in a large outfield like Eckman. And I feel like the Paveway's dimensions are identical to Cement's, right?
For the most part, yeah.
I get the sense that he probably chose Olga Tolson to come in from right field because right field isn't particularly deep. Right field's not particularly deep, and it's an infinitely tall wall, to my knowledge. So a tired Jerry Winchell couldn't be exploited much out there in a sort of situation where he's really tired out and right. You couldn't do a whole ton of damage out there like you could at Eckman.
Yep. Yeah, I can't wait to see that matchup. And then the last matchup we got was Minnesota Twins are going to be facing the humongous Marlins. Personisl. The Twins beat Alex's Angels 7-5. That was actually a really, really close game. Came down to the top of the sixth, I believe, on Toast's side. So that'll be really interesting to see what happens there. So yeah, we got the Twins that had a really good season at TCA, the backyard East champion. Had the Webbers and Xena Frome among their star players. Then the Marlins. Crazy must be updating stuff, and it looks like he updated. he put the wrong one.
He's messing with the bracket. He's copy and paste, and he just built the 0-1 one.
Oh, okay. It's like, okay, that's not the right bracket.
Yeah, you'll see him. He'll be changing it. See, he's doing the left side over there.
Oh, I guess, yeah. Oh, yeah, I see what he's doing. Doing crazy things. Yeah, but this is going to be a really interesting matchup because Toast typically has done better on the road than he has at home for a lot of his games.
It fooled me.
I think that was like the one game the entire season that he actually did really well at home, because there was a lot of times where it would be a split, especially in division, where he would lose the game at home and then win the game on the road. So there was a lot of games like that.
Well, either way, I'm very glad I'm not opening with the Twins. They've got power up and down the lineup. Absolute minimum of 60 bat power, 6 out of 9, 75 or above. They've also got a lot of contact, too. They also have a ton of really good power-throwing arms throughout left field and center. The entire left side of the field is just really strong there. Coordination from pitcher-catcher first is looking really strong here. And it's not bad. It's not bad throughout. There's not a whole lot of real serious weaknesses on the Twins. I'm gonna, if I manage to see them in the league championship series, I'm probably gonna buckle down and spend quite a few more hours just trying to figure this thing out, because this is a super well built team all the way around.
Yeah, I don't really know how I would predict this. I would say maybe Toast has the advantage because he's been playing at TCA all year, but then sometimes he struggles at TCA. But then also the couple times he's played at Cement, and which person is on the Marlins are at Cement Gardens. He didn't do so great at against Shrews at Paveway either. So it's really going to be interesting to see that matchup. What comes out. Too close to call, in my opinion.
I'm just glad one of them's out of my way.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
One of them is going to have to eliminate each other should I get past the Pirates, and for that I'm grateful. But I am not looking forward to potentially facing either of these guys in the league championship series, because my God, Marlins, they've got speed everywhere. They have 5 guys that are tier 3 speed or better. They're going to be monstrous at any concrete field and any playoff field. They're just going to pound grounders, and they're going to pound grounders and go, and no one's going to stop them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the bracket. The bracket just got posted on the spreadsheet. So for the O3 side, so that kind of does it. I briefly just want to mention some of the O1, what the bracket is kind of going to look like. And actually, it looks like on the American League side, we are waiting for who's going to be the 1 seed and who's going to be the 2 seed. On that side between the Astros and the Giants, and that depends on the Astros play the Royals, so that we're currently waiting on that matchup to determine who's going to be the 1 and the 2. The Cardinals just got the 4 seed based on they won their game against the Question Monkey and the Pirates with the quad stream that was yesterday. Sorry to Lobo, even though he put up like a ridiculous score. Put up plus 32 against Crazy's Rockies. He put up a respectable 16, but when your defense gives up 30 runs, you're not going to win many of those games. No. So you can't really say much about the American League side. You got the big 3, as I like to call it, between Freak Shows, Astros, Titaniums, Giants, and Viseries Royals. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you probably feel the same way, since we're both made the playoffs in the 0-1 side, that if we are lucky enough to make the World Series, we only had to play one of those monsters in the American League. They just put up ridiculous scores. Feels like they're scoring 30 every single week.
Yeah, I don't even know who I'd want. I know, do one or both IT and Freak Show play at Playground Commons, or not Playground, but Parks Department?
Itanium plays at Parks. Freak Show plays at TCA.
Okay, because I feel like Parks is just such a bloated field when it comes to offense.
Yeah, so they're just putting up ridiculous offensive numbers like nobody's business. So,
yeah, one thing I will say, I had a brief discussion in DMs with Nate preparing for the podcast here, and there was a time where I was like, I asked myself, how frequently have I scored 20 or more runs? And then when I looked them up, I looked up all 7 instances in which I either scored 20 or more runs or got a plus 20 or better. Mm-hmm. And in 5 of those 7, was me exploiting a subpar catcher with tons and tons of steals. The very first time that didn't happen, actually, hang on. The first time I got 20 or more without abusing steals is against the Padres that I mentioned before. And the other one was in week 10 when I was playing the Red Sox at Parks Department number 2. It was my first ever Parks Department number 2 game, actually. And I got a plus 19, scoring 21. I don't remember who, but I don't remember how the 2s were scored, but I don't think it was a home run, actually, but yeah. There's the evidence that the Department Field number 2 just, absolutely generates crazy offense. And if you're building a crazy offense for Parks Department Field number 2, you're probably not prioritizing defense a whole ton anyhow. Mm-hmm. The White Red Sox certainly didn't put a whole ton of emphasis on defense. They just rake and rake and rake.
Yeah, the only defense that you got here is the Cardinals, and they have one of the better defenses on the 0-1 side. So that's going to be interesting. Whoever the 1 seed is, how well can the Cardinals defense show up? And quickly moving on to the National League side, these matchups are finalized. Ironically, the matchups are the exact same as they were in Week 14. Because the Monsters played the Mets, which is Uria versus Wizard, and they played in Week 14, and the Mets won 7-4. And then my Braves and Personizzles Reds played in Week 14, and we're also playing in the first round. So that was an interesting scheduling quirk. Found that kind of amusing.
Both of those games were relatively low scoring as well.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, what were you saying?
Well, and you joke that can that just be the first round of the playoffs, Week 14, and that I'd sign off on that. But I mean, Nate it had been the hottest of the four of us to kind of finish the year, and obviously ended on that 7-game or 8-game win streak. But I know myself and Yuri both have been kind of limping to the end of the season or into the regular season. And just looking at Personal, he actually has some decent scores here nearing the end of the regular season. But yeah, Yuri and I both kind of limped to the finish line. So that gives me hope.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing is that both of these matchups, all 3 games, we played on the same field. Because the Monsters and the Mets both have playground, and the Braves and the Reds both have steel.
Interesting.
So even though they're technically road and home games, the only benefit is I guess you could say, is who has the multiplier and who doesn't have the multiplier is a more better description of this.
And some people don't even like having the multiplier. They'd rather have the extra at bat.
That is true.
And the other thing is that if you have your defense isn't great, you might want to be the road team because it's one less inning that your defense has to defend.
I believe in my defense, so I'm fine either way.
So that's going to be really interesting to see.
You just made my head swirl in my defense, in my head. Because I'm like, my defense has had a stretch where they have been absolutely agonizingly terrible. Then, in their most recent stretch, they've been doing really, really well for me. I'm like, is this another one of those, storybook runs where the wonderfully sweet children of the Pink Sox believe in themselves and thus should opt for opportunity to defend more times?
Yeah, it's an interesting tactical discussion to have. That definitely would require more than what we have now.
It's not exactly tactical, considering that the seeds are set in stone and we can't exactly choose them. It's an interesting conundrum. That's the word I would use. Is it really an advantage to bat 5 times and get the multiplier?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely a bigger discussion that when we have for another day. But both of these matchups are going to be really interesting to see, and gotta see what happens. I think both matchups are going to be really close, and I would not be surprised if they all went to a third game. I don't know how you're feeling about how about your team, Wizard. I think you and Visory are the only 2 players to make the playoffs in both leagues.
Good company then for me.
So, regardless of what happens, I think that you should be extremely proud of how well that you have done with both of your teams.
I'll take 2 9-5 seasons, and you get to join. You two, you get to both of y'all. And I think Mello had mentioned that he won 11 games prior, but you join that 11 win club, and you end with that really hot streak.
Got some luck along the way.
Back in season 7, but having won 11 games again against a more comprehensive schedule, I feel like this has been the more successful regular season as far as my skill is concerned, because I definitely feel like I've grown a bit as a player, and the fact that I achieved the 11 wins against a relatively tough non-conference schedule, because I played the Pirates. Let's see here, let me look at my schedule one more time. I played against the Expos, who have been decent. I played against the Pirates, a playoff team, the Twins, a playoff team, and the Rangers, a playoff team. I played against the Padres, who were close to being a playoff team, and I played against the Giants, who were reasonably close to being a playoff team. I played among the toughest non-conference schedules this year, I believe, and to still have come out as strongly as I did with all that. I don't think I played a single cupcake all season long. So it's very gratifying to win the Backyard League's regular season championship. And the playoffs, everyone makes a really big deal about the playoffs, but I attribute a lot of luck, particularly with what happens with Nan's Gambit in season 7. I attribute a lot of what of my C7 run to the World Series as really good matchups and some fortunate bounces that went my way. 2 bounces don't go my way, and Keese wins that series in Season 7. I think a really strong regular season record indicates a level of consistency and long-term skill that indicates the strength of an especially good team. And I am more than content with what I have got, especially since now that I've got a World Series trophy behind me. I'm not super, super hungry for another because I know that it takes a lot of work and a lot of stress to work your way through that bracket, having done it myself. But obviously I'm not going to just, let people win because that would suck. I need to make sure that people earn it. So I'm going to put in my usual amount of study. I'm going to put in my usual amount of work. And if Shrewsbury earns it, then he earns it, and congratulations to him. And if not, then I get to see the roaring crowds and concerningly low-flying aircrafts at Big City Stadium again.
Best thing I can say about the playoffs is get your popcorn ready. There's going to be some great games, and hopefully we can have some either simul streams or some edits put together for our viewing pleasure. So grab your popcorn and let's have some fun.
Good luck, everyone. Have fun.
Eckman Acres, Mrs. Eckman is working overtime getting Eckman Acres into postseason condition for the Pirates. Bringing in some, supplemental benches in the outfield for some neighborhood kids and maybe some media, quote unquote, to watch, and firing up the grill in the furnace in right field, getting everyone some hamburgers and hot dogs and ice cream as the Pink Sox and Pirates have their incredibly fun and highly anticipated rematch. Afterward, we're just gonna have some fun, swap some stories, exchange some handshakes and hugs, and party at the Valentino house, win or lose.
Yep, and I think that's gonna do it all for this episode. Gonna leave you with one question, with everyone with one question. What is Mrs. Eckman's favorite flavor of Gatorade? And that'll do it for us for this episode. We'll see you guys later.